Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Steltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last few years or so, I've been featuring each fille du roi or king's daughter and getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them. Today we reach the epic heights of number 200. I can't believe we're here. Um, so we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. But before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. Subscribe, number one, like a video, and notify. And that way you get all the notifications when I post new content, which at the moment is about 3 times a week. And then we have the super thanks, which you can see on your YouTube dashboard, which is a one-time thank you, if you will. And then there's also Coffee and Patreon, which are separate platforms. And I've listed the links in the notes section if you are so inclined. So without further ado, let's get started and find out our episode number 200, Fille du Roi. So episode 200, Marie de la Marre. She is a viewer request, and when I looked in my files, I saw that one of my dear friend's husbands, this is one of his great grandmothers, and then also one of my teenage best friends is also, and also young adult. She's still a really dear friend of mine as well. So this is her great grandmother as well. Let's get to know Marie a little bit better. So Marie was born in 1650 in Rouen, Normandy. She was part of the parish of Saint-Maclou. Her parents were David de la Mare and Anne Boussevestre. And so let's talk a little bit about this amazing area that she's from. It's a city on the River Seine in northern France. It's part of Normandy. It's the capital, actually, of the region of Normandy. And Rouen has an amazing historical story and was at one time the largest city in medieval Europe. It played a prominent role in both English and French histories from the 11th to the 15th century. Joan of Arc was tried and burned alive here in 1431 in this area. Rouen is a city of cultural and educational significance. It was from this area that the Statue of Liberty sailed in June of 1885. Now, the church that you can see on the left is Saint Maclou, and it was originally began the construction sometime around 1432. We have the beautiful downtown core here in the middle section picture, and then of course the River Seine that flows through Rouen. You can see that Rouen on the map is part of the Normandy region, and inside that region we have Seine-Maritime Département, which is like a county. And so this is where our fille du roi came from. On her mother's death, Marie would embark on the most adventurous voyage of her life, her voyage to New France. And she sailed on the ship called La Nouvelle France. She actually arrived in Quebec on July 3rd, 1668. She did not bring with her, as far as we can tell, a dowry of any sort. So the groom that she selected and who selected her, his name was Guillaume Renaud, and he was born in 1644 in Saint-Jouin-sur-Mer in France. It is now known as Saint-Jouin-Bruneval, and you can see by the Saint-Jouin-sur-Mer that sur-mer means on the sea. So obviously it was very close to the water. His parents were Guillaume Renaud and Suzanne de la Haye. He is also from Normandy and also from the Département de Seine-Maritime. The church that he would have been baptized in dates from the end of the 13th century and is actually houses a very famous statue of Saint Sebastian. Saint Sebastian is one of the most popular saints in churches in France. He's actually kind of an honored holy healer of all plagues and skin diseases. And so that's kind of an interesting tidbit of information. But certainly you can see by the look of the church that it actually has a very, very historical component. The picture on your right is one of the many, many castles and houses that date from that 15th, 16th century. Guillaume, as many of his fellow countrymen, would arrive in New France with Les Carignan Salière soldiers, and he arrived on August 17th, 1665, with the company of La Colonelle. He did decide to stay in New France, and he can be found in the household of Louis Théandre Chantier. And you can see here, this is the 1666 or 1667 census. Guillaume Renaud, 24, he's listed as a domestic. So he's working out kind of his time, waiting patiently for the woman of his dreams. And a mere 3 years later, they were married. November 27th, 1668, this is the marriage record of Guillaume and Marie, and they were married at Quebec City. They first would settle down in Quebec City. Let's review a little bit about this amazing place. It's the capital city of the province of Quebec in Canada. 500,000 people live directly in Quebec City. Quebec was originally named by the Algonquins, who named the area Quebec, K-E-B-E-C, which in their native language meant where the river narrows. Quebec City lies where the St. Lawrence River narrows. Samuel de Champlain founded a French settlement here in 1608 and called it Ville de Québec, or Quebec City. The city walls which surround it still date back to this time period, making Quebec City the only city with remaining city walls north of Mexico in North America. There's so much to see in Quebec City, but I wanted to just pinpoint two very distinctive places where Marie and Guillaume would have seen it. I mean, this would have been something they would have seen. There is the Maison Jacquette. It's the oldest surviving private residence in Quebec. It dates from 1665. And if you'd like to tour, it's home to a very famous restaurant, appropriately called Aux Anciens Canadiens, roughly translated to our old Canadians. And then we also have Le Petit Champlain on the bottom here, which claims to be the oldest commercial district in North America. So these would have been places and things that they would have seen in their time. And I just always am amazed by how old things are and how you can kind of walk in the footsteps of your ancestors. Eventually, the family would settle at Charlebourg. Charlebourg is a borough of Quebec City now, but originally it was its own little town. The history of this place begins with the concession of the Seigneurie of Notre-Dame-des-Anges in 1626. The seigneurie was actually given to the Jesuits. In 1665, the new intendant of justice, Jean Tannot, set out to establish 3 new villages further north on the plateau. This, as you can imagine, caused friction with the Jesuits. Now, I want to draw your attention to that left hand of your screen. You can see Charlebourg, and then you can also see Petite Auvergne and Bourg-Royal. So these are 3 little towns, and you can see how they're laid out in a star-shaped pattern. And so all of the concession, all of the land was facing the middle, which is a very unusual, construction at the time. But essentially, you can imagine in the middle there, what do you think would have gone in there? The church. So all the land and the houses were pointing to the church. And you can see the star shaped of it. Very, very distinctive at Charlebourg and to a lesser degree at Petite Auvergne, and obviously Bourg-Royal also has it. And this on the bottom left is a 1960s version aerial view of the town, and you can really clearly still see how it's set up. Now, the church that they would have gone to did not exist. Saint Charles de Borromée. This is on the extreme right is a illustration from 1696. And then, of course, this is the church in the middle here as it exists today. And you can see where Charlebourg is in relationship to Quebec. Now, obviously, it's much closer to Quebec City. It's part of that bigger part. But this is where they made their lives. Go on to have 10 children. Louis would marry Marie-Madeleine Bedard and had 11 children, all of whom made it. Jean Bernard married Jeanne Derry and had 10 children, 8 of whom made it. Marianne would marry Nicolas Ledoux, but did not have any children. Louise would marry Joseph Verret and had 2 children, both of whom made it. Pierre would marry Jeanne Thérèse Dury and have 9 children, 8 of whom would make it. Jeanne Elisabeth would marry Jacques Bédard and have 7 children, all of whom would make it. Marie Marguerite would marry Jean-François Savard and had 9 children, all of whom made it. Joseph would die at 2 years of age. Marie-Thérèse would marry Pierre Voyer and had 4 children, all of whom made it. And Joseph married Marie-Jeanne Bédard and had 2 children, all of whom made it. And this is the 1681 census where we have Guillaume at 37 years old, Marie de la Marre, his wife, their children, Louis, Jacques, Marie, Louise, Guillaume. And so then we had 1 Gagne. We have 2 bêtes à cornes, which are 2 goats, and 6 arpents, so about 5 to 6 acres of land. Years on December 21st, 1709, at Charlebourg. First, Marie would die at the age of 59, which is a relatively young age. Guillaume would die 2 weeks later. How's that for actual, kind of really being bonded together? He died 2 weeks later on January 5th, 1710, at 66 years of age. They had been married 41 years. And as of 1729, they would have 116 descendants. As always, I'd love to leave you with some further research. La Société des Filles du Roi is a great place to start. It has everything you ever wanted to know about Les Filles du Roi. Then we have the Quebec Genealogical Society. We have Nos Origines, Wikitree, Les Filles du Roi Descendants Facebook page, which is a great place to connect up. Généalogie Québec for that hard-to-find document you're looking for. It does cost money, but boy, is it worth it. And then we have La Société d'Histoire des Filles du Roi, that's based in Quebec. Have a look at them as well. And I've posted all the links in the notes section. So 200, Marie de la Marre. She was a woman who obviously came to New France on her own, founded a life, built a life with Guillaume, 41 years together. And as I've said many times, sometimes the life they lead is just they were born, they get married, they have children, and then they pass. But the fact that they existed means that we exist. And so we are ever grateful for their sacrifice and for their diligence and for what they did to keep the line growing. So we thank Marie for her bravery and her courage, and we bless her memory. I also want to do a shout out to my patrons and supporters who are always there for me, and I really, really am grateful not only for your support, but also for your encouragement. So I thank you, all of you, and all of you who write to me and support and give me feedback. I really, really appreciate it. So with that, I bid you adieu and au revoir until I see you on episode 201.